All right. Good evening, good afternoon. Welcome everybody to a webinar of the ASEAN Regional Coalition to Stop Digital Dictatorship. And since this is Women's Month, because Women's Day is not enough, we at least have to have 1 month in March. We are going to be hosting this webinar on women human rights defenders in the digital space, realities and solutions to speak truth to power freely. And I am extremely delighted to have a panel of kick-ass women activists who have bravely done their work and advocacy despite the cyberbullying and the trolling that's happening. So I'm Debbie Stothard from ALTSEAN-Burma, and I'm going to be your immoderate moderator. And we're going to kick off today with a serious, sorry, we're facing a little bit of problem. Nada has to mute while I'm talking. Yeah, all right. So Nada, you're going to have to mute while I'm talking because we're in the same room. Cool. All right. So we're going to have 8-minute contribution from each of our esteemed kick-ass feminist speakers. And then we're going to have a little bit of an interactive discussion. So I'm going to kick things off with Sopheap Chak, Executive Director of the Cambodia Center for Human Rights. Sopheap was just disclosing that she's been working in civil society for nearly 20 years. So you must have been working since you were in your cradle. Instead of a child labor, you must have been a baby labor. So Sophia, Cambodia is definitely a challenging country when it comes to speaking truth to power and challenging human rights violations. What has the digital space been like for you? Who are the greatest threats, and what have you been able to do to fight back? Over to you, Sophia.
Thank you, Debbie. And first of all, my greeting to all speakers and panelists who join us today, and greeting to all friends who may follow our lives now. It is very important topic that we come together to discuss today on the the work of the women human rights defender, especially in the context of digital space. I don't prepare any slide or whatever, in my mind, but I will try to speak from my heart because the topic itself have to be, from the experience and the heart that, we have been exposing. So if we talking about women human rights defender, I believe that we can see the phenomena where many human rights advocates, especially the women, have been at the front line, in this few years, at least. But if we track the past record, many women defenders have come out and speak and defending the right, namely, to claim a number of women's right that we all can entitle today. So, when we speak this, my dedication to all women defender in the past time and to nowadays, and especially if we look at what happening in Myanmar right now, many women are also at the front line, and they not to discredit other advocates, other community who are on the street right now, but we can see, like many face of the women and the one who have been shut down, have been also the women. Come to the Cambodian context. the women at the front line have been noticed throughout the years, especially when it comes to the, the land rights. Many women have been at the front line advocating, protesting, and claiming for the right, not just for their own, but for their community. And they expose a number of threats. They have combined with not just the offline activity but also online to certain extent, and this have exposed them to a number of threats and troll as well. I have witnessed a number of harsh comment against women advocate. They are not simply advocate online, but they are on the street. But comment from senior men in the government official or in academic field, which come to the surprise. Sometimes they say that women, supposedly women who are active on the street, may be also active on the bed. This is really harsh comment, and there is just a few examples, but I want to draw the line of how women advocate, because now in the context of COVID as well, many advocates turn online for their advocacy. So there have been cases in Cambodia when we talking about gender equality, we talking about women's rights. People claim to be a women advocate, but when it comes to the legislation, people come with the accuse of tradition and women dignity by designing the law that can restrict the freedom of women. For example, recently the Cambodian government have introduced a draft law on the public order law. So that draft law have contain a clause that restrict the women, from wearing sexy or revealing clothes. How you define sexy and revealing clothes? That is a very subjective, and this come into the context of preserving the Cambodian culture and women dignity itself. And this come one there have been a discussion of how many women, especially the online seller, have wear sexy outfit, and this have drawn a lot of debate, and the debate itself have been very harsh and have been very subjective. As a women advocate, together with other partner, we have issued a public joint statement demanding that the government have to be careful at this draft legislation. But before this draft legislation, the case of a woman who have been arrested because of her outfit. And the comment from the senior official who suggesting that women should not appear publicly in a sexy outfit, and this provoked the rape of sexual violence against women, and we fought against this. We comment that such statements should not be come out from a senior government official, and that endorse the culture of impunity and the victim blaming culture. In return, what we got from this statement, we were harassed. We received a lot of hate statement or troll. Personally, I have been receiving a number of comments. And in certain comment, they have edit my picture with a naked body, and certain comment even suggesting that I and my daughters, somehow I don't have kids yet, but they mentioned that I and my daughter should went out on the street in a naked outfit, so this is this is really harsh comment, and when it comes to sex and advocacy, for again the mainstream, again it is an unpopular advocacy. We know that it is unpopular because when it comes to the context of culture or women dignity, people are very subjective. But we're still fighting, because if we don't fighting now, the next generation would suffer more. That is just one example, and there have been a recent like example how gender-based violence have been prevailed a lot. But we're talking about the the impact from the online space affecting through troll or hate speech against women. But we should also acknowledge the positive side from the digital space, where a number of gender-based violence have been revealed online, and the public support on the case have also bring about a certain degree of justice or remedy for the victim as well. Like recently, there have been a case of the family of a tycoon who end up reveal the wife of that tycoon have released a security camera video that revealing a lot of abuse against her. So the public have comment a lot, but at the same time, the men have come out and make a lie and try to explain the justification of his abuse against the wife. Certain public endorse him. Certain public comment that, well, if they were him, they would do the same, or that kind of abuse, that kind of reason is justified for the violence to be happening. So while I commend the social media that it can help to provoke public support, but it could also be harmful if the public don't really stand by the principle and derive from a human right based approach. And I would just end here by just saying that yes, we can recognize that there are a number of women nowadays at the front line, but the risks against her are also a lot, both offline and online, and that requires us to stand in solidarity together, but also for general public to acknowledge how gender sensitivity is important when they have to respond both online and offline. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophia. And so that's a really strong opening to our webinar today, because it's exposing the fact that while trolls, particularly men, feel quite safe to use the digital space to bully and attack and sexually and verbally abuse women online, women human rights defenders feel equally unsafe in both in all forms of public space, including digital space, which makes me kind of mad, because every time we always want to use reason and logic and take a rights-based approach, but sometimes when you see people making such horrible sexist remarks, the least you want to do is sue the pants off them. And that is why I am so happy to introduce a lawyer, Nada Chaiyajit, who is a transgender rights activist and human rights campaigner at Manushya Foundation. Nada, you've got your master's, you've got your law degree. How many people have you been able to sue? Tell us what's been happening.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, Debbie. I couldn't remember how many people, and that is not a number that I like to tell people that how many people or how many cases. I wish that we can minimize the cases that we have been receiving. throughout, even I was in the UK, the discrimination cases against trans, also GSC rights, it still keep going up, which is make me consider about what wonder why we have been working in this field for so long, but still have to really pushing back the fight against the myth that, for example, in my country, Thailand, is like paradise for LGBTIQ people. And recently, I myself received a death threat. I'd like to share you some background about the cases. Personally, I don't even believe that it's going to happen with myself. When the death threat I received coming from actually who is working in journalism industry, which we believe that in democratic society, to ensure the freedom of expressions and the work of media agency should be really put in the center, right? When we experience some kind of like living in the country where, for example, in Thailand, look like we have democracy, but actually we have been ruled under dictators. So, but my point is, it's hard for us to fight against media, as we need to work as ally, right? We need to have them be our ally in terms of like providing positive message and or the life story about our LGBTIQ rights in Thailand, or even bring the situation on the ground for society and even government to understand that Thailand is not a paradise for us. Thailand also experienced lots of stigma and discriminations, and also it still live in actually when it's come to our laws and policies in place, Thailand is one of the I would say like traditional a very traditional way in terms of like applying or pushing the agenda to promote LGBTIQ rights. So for me, to working closely with media is the key. But one day I received a threat because I provide legal service to help a transgender persons from media journalists who want to actually dig down and review the case about the misunderstanding that a transgender person just have recently like having dinner, but try to make a payment via our online banking application. There was an error that the money didn't go out. Unbelievable! This kind of just normal situation become a public a public issue. Like online media agency try to cover her story in a negative way, and one day this journalist came into her life and tried to approach her and try to say that I want to review the comprehensive story, but in the same time, how come that he access to in-depth personal information? For example, her mother's name, mother's phone numbers, know where she lives in the northeastern northeastern of Thailand. And then, so when she came to us as Rainbow Sky Association and Manushya Foundation, instead of pushing back the media to step aside and leave the story behind and moving forward, instead he act against us by sending direct and indirect message. Well, indirect message is hardly to tell that is this guy exactly, but by the circumstance that I could say when the conversation we have had with him so far, he's the only one person that he knows that what we are doing in terms of the case. So we got some kind of like unbelievable for me that the messages I like to show you. I like to read for you to understand. So well, actually, my clients, she, because of her fear, she keep recording the conversation throughout the phone, because she want to make sure that in case of he step out of the line to bother her personal life, she might need it in the future in terms of legal protection. And she was so smart because of these evidence she gave us, so I can really now access to justice in many different ways. I access to justice with, of course, general justice system, right? Do a crime report and then file complaint against media agency, including him in terms of interference to personal life and that threat to I myself as human rights defenders, and also file a complaint with the parliamentarian commission. So we try to access as much as we can in order to ensure, because what he claimed to us is like he has 30 years experience in journalism, and he's the top, like he's the first rank in the field. So how do we know, like compared to very high profile journalist and just a transgender person, how society gonna take side? I don't want to use the word take side, but in terms of like our credibility, right? So that's why we have to ensure that we access to all these judicial system or human rights mechanisms in the countries. So I just like to state one of the sentence that we received the death threat for you to understand that hate crime is not far behind. It's just around us. It's just wait for the time for those people when they get opportunity, they're ready to act against us. So the text message received said that, "Kiddo, I'm warning you out of a goodwill. If my voice clip got leaked, you would be put in the grave. It is already hard to live in this society as transgender. If you do not delete the clip, you won't have any place here. You must delete and send the clip to me. If not, you know what will happen. Do you want to be found dead in the pool? I really hate faggots. When would you will go extinct, you freaking buffaloes?" And this is a message that my clients received from this, I believe it's him as journalist. I myself also received a message just in that day, just 7 minutes later, warning me to stop providing service to save my clients. So he said that he said that I have to stop because don't bother the case. If you don't want to, you experience exactly the same as that young faggot. So when I checked the message, it obviously said to me that, okay, this is not normal. So, well, even we try hard in terms of pushback, but he is with media agencies behind. So the best thing we can do so far is now we are submit complaint directly to also the media agency that he is working for at the moment. And we are looking forward to see how the case will end. But what the last thing I would like to share with you all is that, well, when we receive this kind of like death threat, it actually impacts to our mental health. It's really difficult to carry on, even if it was not 100%, like I'm not 100% in fully capacity, but it is important to gather all the key evidence as much as possible, because we have nothing, it's still actually mentally impact me when talking about this case. But gathering information, gathering every piece of evidence is very important. And what we need to understand more, because in terms of like digital literacy, and I think this kind of skill is a must for our as women rights defender to have this kind of trained skill, because and I first tried to report the crime with the digital crime unit with the government. I cannot even find where is the URL, because we usually use the mobile phone, right, in order to receive this kind of like messages, and it takes me a whole week to understand that you can actually log in to your laptop and you can find the URL. And URL is very important in terms of tracking the IP address and try to identify who is the perpetrators. So I think this kind of skill, you know, and I'm 42 and I'm quite old school at some point, but now everything's run through technologies and digital worlds. So I think it is important for us to really make sure that all the skill, you know, like we should be received in order to fight back against the crime in the digital world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nada. I'm going to ask you to mute, sorry. Thank you so much, Nada, for sharing a case that is ongoing. So suing someone is also a dangerous action, because even those people who are threatening women human rights defenders in the digital space will then start to threaten their lawyers, particularly if their lawyers are women. And the visibility of the transgender LGBT plus community also makes them even more vulnerable, because that homophobia is just below the surface, along with misogyny. So that's something that we do need to think about, but also Nada makes a very clear case for the need for all of us to be more digitally literate. Now, Sopheap our first speaker for today, saluted the women human rights defenders of Burma, especially at this time that women are still part of this nationwide struggle to overturn and reverse the coup that is in progress in their country. So it is also very special that Tin Tin Neo, Managing Director of Burma News International, is taking time out of her incredibly busy and stressful schedule to spend some time with us on this topic. Tin Tin Neo, before becoming Managing Director of Burma News International, Tin Tin Neo is a veteran, a feminist activist, combating military impunity, and even sometimes trolling and harassment from fellow human rights defenders in the movement. Tin Tin Neo is now Managing Director and basically boss of BNI, which is a group of 16 independent news organizations. And I wanted to refer back to what Sopheap had mentioned about statements by public figures then contributing to a rise in cyber trolling targeting women human rights defenders. Has that been your experience, Tin Tin Neo?
Thank you so much for inviting me in this very interesting and important webinar, where we are talking about the women human rights defenders under the scrutinies of the digital safety. For me, it's like these times I was pretty much occupied, my mind, my bodies, with the current coup and all the killings and all the violations, all the beatings, all the destructive actions of the military soldiers acting with impunity, because there is no rule of law and there is no social system that can actually protect the people, the women and children who are especially most vulnerable in any unsafe environment. So now that we have to talk about the digital, and safety issues, as that is, women human rights defenders are facing while they are helping and protecting and standing for their own rights. I mean, like for us as working for the rights of the women and the freedom of the women and also freedom of everyone in the communities. We have to face all different kinds of harassment, threats, intimidations that come from the people who have guns, that come from the people who have power, even though they don't have guns, that come from the people who think that they are power because they are men. They are just simply men. So that is how much our community is being patronized and being, controlled by the patriarchy mindset, patriarchy system in the country. And then in the past, I used to say that why we women have to fight every problem, why we have to solve all the problems when the men have to solve only some problems. And why we have to face all kinds of discrimination or violation, why the other only suffer half of what we have. But by the time that when it is coming to the solution, and also by the time that when it's coming to, the opportunities, why women are the one that who have to lose everything? Why we don't have any chances? So there are so many questions around that. And now our situation getting worse again because of the military coup. Then why we are fighting for our rights and then the recognitions because of we are women, and that to seek for some protection, but now we have to fight against the military again. So it is a very unfortunate for the people of Burma, especially women. And also it is also like a kind of adventures for us that we have to take times and times. Anyway, so I would like to talk about the digital security that affecting women human rights defender. I mean, like for Burma, it is just a developing country, or even we can say the underdeveloped country. So when it's come to the access to digital and access to ICT, women are a lot behind, and there are many women who are illiterate. So they do not get the information on like information literacy, what they need to avoid, what kind of information they can post, what kind of information they can trust, who to follow, who to trust, or etc. So they have so little information on this kind of literacy, this kind of information, why men have more advances. So that's why women are most vulnerable, even if they are women human rights defender. They are still left behind when it comes to ICT skills. So that like cyberbullying and also harassment is very common for any woman who are in the forefront, any women who are candid and who are talking on what they believe. So they are always like being bullied and harassed on Facebook, especially on Facebook. During the times that when women human rights defenders are opposing the laws that is like proposed by the mainstream Buddhist monks, which is especially to control the lives and the bodies of the women and their beliefs. So at that times, those women who are on the forefront, day and night, they got messages, harassing them, threatening them, and also all kinds of like a sexual harassments. They get like as Nada said, this has a big impact on their mental health. They couldn't sleep, they are not secure anymore. So in that kind of situation, but women, they still stand strong to fight against. But although we did not win, but we're still able to express what we believe. And then why this, law should be there. And also like for the recent cases, some may think that it is not important, but for me, I think it is important. Because for example, now we are fighting against the military coups, and there are so many military personnel, and now who are the perpetrators of killing the innocent protesters. So at the time, I think like they're trying to, the groups of men, and there are also some women, they're trying to make like, okay, if you continue killing the innocent people, we are going to bring out the HD, the porn video of your wives, your daughters, your sisters, I mean, like, I know that they are not saying really, but why they have to use these women as to threaten, another parties? Why don't they have a better plan? So I even posted, my opinions on that. But some people may think that it is not, and it's important, but this is a very well-structured, well-rooted, mindset that had a very strong prejudice against the woman. It is like, I even give an example. It is like when by the time that the Burma army rape the ethnic woman, it is just to hurt, just to traumatize, the mental of the men, the mentality of the ethnic armed organization men. That is the same kind of strategy they are using. So I think that's also I try to point out it. And also there during the election time last years, women MPs, women contestants, they face lots of cyberbullying, they face lots of harassment. And then also many kind of saying that actually bring down the women motivations to be able to work as a politician, as a woman MPs. It is very hard for the woman already to decide and to choose this path, because they know that there are so many things that they have to deal with. But at the same time, why they have to use this kind of a low, standard criticism against women? Why can't, the men, accept these women abilities, capacities, and capabilities used for the benefit of the society development? Why can't they have this kind of a generous mind to just recognize and welcome the woman? Why they use all different forms of, the digital platform to harass these women? And then, Burmese people, since they start using the digital platform, they believe anything that is posted on Facebook. Only a few people who understand so well about what is fake news, what is a misinformation, disinformation, they can realize that this is not the right information. But the majority, they believe whatever things that is said talking about that woman MP, that woman candidates. They believe it and they don't vote anymore. So that is so damaging. So for me, it's myself. Of course, it is not only the I don't face, as far as I know, lots of cyberbullying. Maybe because I'm also not that advanced in ICT. Maybe I did not see it. So I don't know, but so far I got some messages which they kind of criticize me. They kind of bully me when I stand for Rohingya. So that was the time that when the Daw San Suu Kyi standing for when she went to the standing for the ICJ, defending for Burma, etc. So at the time I got some kind of criticism. So, but for others, maybe I did not follow it, and I did not really take it because it is going to traumatize my mental health. So I think I don't have a very special experiences when it's come to cyberbullying. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tintinyo. One of the reason I was really happy to moderate this session is to also the fact that I can be in the middle of all these inspiring and courageous women. And Tintinyo raised this issue that women who've traditionally left behind need to have more support to gain digital literacy, but also to be able to understand what is fake news and not to be sucked into attacking other women because of fake news. And also the fact that when feminists in the country stood against the race and religion protection laws that were aimed at policing women's choices, including in marriage and other matters, and choice of religion, that feminists like Tintinio took a stand and were themselves subjected to a huge deluge of harassment and threats. So digital security, not just in terms of being able to gather evidence of digital crimes and harassment, but also literacy in terms of feeling the confidence to judge what is fake news and what is not. And both Sophia and Tintinio also raised this issue of so-called culture, tradition, and the burning issue, the use of religion to threaten and restrict and even encourage cyberbullying. So we now have our next speaker, Nicole Fong from Malaysia. She's a researcher, activist, and content creator, and a campaigner at Klima Action Malaysia. So Nicole works at the intersections between climate justice, LGBTQ+ rights, and feminist economics. So she's obviously doing something really good in her work, but she became a target because of religion. So I'm going to ask Nicole to share her story and also about how she fought back. Over to you, Nicole.
Hi, thank you everyone for having me. Where do I even start? Okay, so I think I'm going to share my story about what happened to me from like my own perspective, and then try to situate it within the whole the context of Malaysia. So yeah, so it's mostly from like a youth activist perspective. So this happened last year in around August, and what had happened was a minister from Jakim is the Department of Islamic Development Malaysia. It's a huge Islamic agency in Malaysia. It's a government agency. One of the ministers, they put out a statement. They put out a statement giving the green light for authorities to take action on trans people in Malaysia. And this is not new news. The Malaysian government always scapegoats LGBT people, whenever they need a distraction to distract from how bad they're doing a job or anything. Yeah, but I decided, this was in the middle of the pandemic, releasing such a statement. So many of my trans friends were even more afraid of going out with this statement going out. So what I decided to do was make some infographics talking about LGBT conversion therapy, because the whole statement was about giving the green light to take action and bring them to these government-funded conversion therapy programs that Jakim organizes. Yeah, so this whole infographic was about conversion therapy, how to identify it, what it looks like in Malaysia, and the impacts of conversion therapy and the harm that it produces on trans people in Malaysia. So that got released on my own personal social media. They're like infographics. They're trending now as a form of virtual activism. And oh, sorry, Ellie, can you mute yourself? Yeah, sorry. So the infographics came out, and it came out, I remember it came out on Eid or Raya. So people were on holiday. But then after Eid ended, they suddenly came back, they suddenly saw my post, and Jakim, and along with a bunch of other non-state actors, so like Islamic NGOs or human rights, Islamic-based NGOs in Malaysia, so very, very conservative. They filed, I don't even know how many police reports against me. They filed police reports against me about my infographics. Yeah, I know it's at least 5 reports, but it's probably higher. The number is higher. I don't actually know. And I know this because they were, not only were they criticizing my post by responding and getting, trolls to harass me on my Twitter account and telling me, why am I bad mouthing Jakim? yeah, and all the usual anti-LGBT blah blah blah, you know, LGBT people are the worst. And they were using very like sexual assaulty language to harass me, you know, like, you asked for this, you know, like, watch out, the police are gonna get you with these reports. And they were posting pictures of the police reports, like they were so proud of it. And in Malaysia, the trend right now, the past year, is like a lot of people just file police reports against anyone they don't like. But yeah, so when I got that, last year when it happened, I was 25, and this was, you know, it was very new for me. I knew this would happen, but you know, going through it by yourself is like a different experience. What did I do? There wasn't much to do except and wait for the police to call me in for investigation. Like the redress mechanism is like basically non-existent. I think I could have reported to the like communications, department, government department, but usually nothing gets done by that. Did I try? I think I tried to report it to Twitter, all the harassment, but you know, they're not going to do anything. So in the end, all I did was submit a complaint or document what was happening. People around the LGBT community helped me document this, and they helped me file a human rights complaint to the Human Rights Commission in Malaysia, and also to the OHCHR. I always mess it up, but yes. So, and then that's all I could do. I just had to wait. Yeah, I just had to wait to see if I'm gonna get called in. But in the end, no one called me in, even though this was happening in a period where lots of journalists and other human rights defenders were getting called in to be questioned on like Sedition Act or like, you know, just anything seditious. This was happening to other people as well. Yeah. So the impact that it has had on me is that, yeah, for the longest time, I was so afraid. I'm still kind of afraid to like, you know, speak on my own social media. And I use my social media to do a lot of my advocacy work through the, you know, the infographics or just like raising awareness. So it's really, I still find it really difficult, even though it's months later, to like speak whatever I want to speak on my social media. Because yeah, I'm like, who's gonna file a police report against me next? And like they attacked me for not even saying new information. I was just saying information that, you know, other men have said before. It's not new information. I think it was because I was a woman, I was queer, I was not a Muslim, commenting on Muslim related things. And it was too confrontational. So they just decided to launch a full-blown attack against me. And now, like, I'm very hyper aware about any kind of activism I do. Even in the climate activism I do, there have been cases where, like, if you try to relate gender issues with the climate crisis, you also get attacked for that, just by bringing in gender issues in the climate conversation. So it's like, I don't know, like, I work with a lot of young activists, and I need to, the language and the awareness about online gender-based violence is still kind of like low. So I always feel like I have to take way more precautions to, you know, educate like new activists who are coming into the scene whenever you're organizing anything, or just even like trying to find ways to support other people, other women who are going through their own attacks, reprisals. Yes, that's the word. But I think my 8 minutes is up, so I will end there and maybe say more later. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you so much. Actually, you're just under 8 minutes. That was action-packed. The story, the compelling narrative, the lessons learned, and the fact that we have a kick-ass climate justice, feminist, LGBTQ+ activist who is now having to think a few times before to self-censor in the public space, in social media. She has to be less social in social media because a few insecure men use religion to launch a campaign on her that even threatened her with sexual assault. And as a Malaysian, it's been very troubling to see that a lot of Malaysian men think it is completely fine to threaten women in the public sphere with rape in order to teach them a lesson or remind them who they are. So it's really, really troubling, and it's a new danger. But I hope that, Nicole, you don't censor yourself so much, because we all have the ultimate right to express who we are and what we're thinking, especially when we are not encouraging rape, sexual assault, or other forms of violence against other people. So, I think we have to express a lot of solidarity, but also we have in the room people, women, who will give us some practical tips about pushing back. So how do we overcome these ongoing challenges? How do we protect ourselves? How do we go kick some ass? I'm going to start. We have 3 women in the room who are going to help us out with that. And we are going to start with Debbie Stothard, who is the Asia Pacific Policy Council for Access Now. So Debbie, you got some tips for us? What digital weapons do we have to defend ourselves? Over to you. Over to you.
Thanks, Debbie. Actually, I think with the tips, Ellie, who's also on the speakers panel, can speak more to it because she's our security lead. And Access Now has a 24/7 digital security helpline, which Ellie basically leads for the region. So I think she can speak a lot more to it. But because I've been given the floor, I'll just talk on my side. So for those people who haven't heard of Access Now, so we're a human rights organization that focuses on digital rights and like broad areas of work are like business and human rights, digital security, freedom of expression online, net discrimination, and privacy. And a lot of this work is through our policy and advocacy arms, and also our security arm, which is what Ellie is leading for the region, and a grants arm, which actually provides funds for grassroots people on the ground and partners on the ground. I think for us, it's been really, I think I speak for everyone to say that it's been really enriching to hear everyone's experiences. I think I'm a bit like Tintin in that I don't go on social media as often, so I just try not to engage with people like that, but I think that is not a good response, and we need to be actually proactive in fighting back online. And I think women revert to that because of the harassment that they face online, and they think that, it just makes your mind clearer if you don't have to deal with it. I think one thing that Nicole said, which was quite pertinent to what I was going to speak about, is the fact that, you said you wanted to report Twitter and then you realize they're not going to do anything. And I think that's why I was going to speak to like ethical standards at tech companies. I think everyone is aware that, now these tech companies, especially the ones headquartered in the West, they've got their own guidelines. They've got the community standards for Facebook, like Twitter has its rules, and like TikTok has its community guidelines. The problem is that, these are all privately like sort of implemented guidelines, and they are not done publicly, in the sense that we do not have any information publicly about how consistently they're applied and how they're being applied in-house in their companies at all. And the guidelines themselves, if you look at it, they allude to like gendered impacts on women and LGBT individuals, but they don't look specifically into them. It's normally under like bullying and harassment or graphic and sexualized content, but they don't have, guidelines that are quite specifically gendered. And in a lot of instances, I think people who have reported women and LGBTQ individuals who have reported harassment online have faced the fact that, they come back saying, it's not really harassment under our guidelines. I think there is a lack of clear leadership clear commitment by the leadership of these companies, and there needs to be a push that, you know, that they will show that they will place human rights at the forefront of the decisions. And yeah, recently Facebook came up with a corporate human rights policy, which is a good step forward, although it took many years to get there. But I think at the same time, we do need to push for their human rights team to have a like greater role in the company and to be supported and expanded across like their team. So like in product development, safety and security, sales, not just, you know, with policy related issues. And I think to speak also a bit more on the fact on how women experience their interactions with the social media companies. I think 2019 Level Up, which is a UK based campaign group, actually, they surveyed about 1,000 people and 1,000 women, and more than half of them had actually said they don't trust Facebook to deal with the complaints. Of those women, of the 1,000 women, about 20-something% actually faced harassment and reported it, but more than half of them said that Facebook came back and said they didn't violate the community standards, or they didn't even respond at all. And of the 1,000 that they've surveyed, 70% said they needed more moderators. So this is just like one country, it's just the UK, but it's a reflection of a very clear gap. And in a country where, you know, they do have very strong presence. So I think they do need to close that gap. And it's not just the policies. I think at the same time, they do need to increase diversity in their companies, because that would really help the implementation of, you know, gender-centric approaches to like content moderation online. From 2015, research, it showed that, you know, about only 16% of people in tech, the major tech companies, were women. It's increasing now, and, you know, Facebook's board has now more women, but I think that needs to be a real strong push on their end. So I think that's where I'll stop. I'm just generally saying that tech companies really need to do more, and we do need to keep pushing them on it. And there needs to be much more transparency with respect to how they deal with these problems, and they're just going to increase over time. And so they do need to really step up their game. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Debbie. So social media companies are still not trusted by women who use their women customers to fix the problem. And that lack of trust is justified because they haven't been transparent or gender sensitive in their policies and in the implementation of those policies, something that we really need to push on. So that's a good point to move on. I'm going to actually now call on Blandina Lintang Setyatanti from ALTSEAN in Indonesia. Blandina, you've been doing a lot of research on this topic, on women human rights defenders in the digital space. What kind of policy recommendations have you come up with? Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. So actually, we just prepare some of the research about women human rights defender situations in Indonesia, but it's still under editing process. So I hopefully I can share it to you guys and also the translations in public soon. But what we found, it's actually we see all the online-based violence, gender-based violence, is the assault is no longer focused on the issue of the criticize or the point of view of women that we heard from the speaker, but they attack like the individual and person, and it means they trying to they actually targeted women's rights to privacy, like for example, they attack our body, they attack our identity being a woman, or the sexual orientations that Nicole faced. And so that means they no longer focus on our like criticize or the political opinion, but they attack our privacy. And I think all the violations we have to fight for this, because sometimes for example, in Indonesia, so many communities, so many human rights defender things, oh, this is the consequences of being a human rights defender. But I think it's that's opinion is kind of normalized the violation. And I think as we are as a human and want a mainstreaming feminism perspective, which yeah, the feminism movement is not violence movement, so we have to fight for this. Like, and all these assaults, it's actually become they trying to threat us. They try. It is also a terror to women who speaks in the public, and they trying to get back us not into the public area. Like, for example, in Indonesia, so many women human rights defender who about their opinion objectively, and then they will not care about the comments or the opinions, but they will like attack their identity as a woman. And so many attacks also yeah, related to sexual assault, which we saw that this is also the situations that reflects how men in our society forced to put their morality standard towards women. Like, for example, they think they have a power to make a woman human rights defender less morality, like saying that this is a sex worker if you're a woman human rights defender, so it's associated to sex workers, which is it's also to questions what's wrong being a sex worker, for example. So the attacks or the patterns of the attacks towards a woman human rights defenders associate with the morality of standards. And yeah, I mentioned about the privacy things, and we all know maybe long history about how women have a privacy, because sometimes the concept of privacy become tools to protect domestic violence. Like, oh, this is the privacy issue, so we cannot fight for domestic violence. But I think from the sharings and the situations, we see that privacy is actually matter. And I think this is the point how we have to reclaim the privacy, because our privacy rights is become a key and to access our other political rights. For example, to express our expression, our political opinions. So I think we have to reclaim again the privacy for a woman. And my third point actually also mentioned about how the accountability or the responsibility from tech company that Debbie already shared, but I only want to mention that the tech company is actually not neutral for women. Like, for example, so many tech company is male dominated, and most of them white male dominated. So it means that the biased perspective sometimes is translating in the technology language, and it's actually shows or reflects from how long response from the social media platform when they receive critics or reports about the gender-based violence online. And yeah, maybe Devi already shares a lot of things about it, but I want to mention how the system and how the features about the report is sometimes not works, and it's also long and complicated and have a language barrier, especially for us in Asian country. So I think it's also important we have to fight or ask their responsibility on this situation. I think that's
Thank
from
you,
me, Debbie.
Blandina. Thank you, Blandina. So, strong call for a public accountability of companies in addressing this issue, this very serious issue. So it's not about people cracking jokes or being slightly offensive. This is out and out cyber trolling, out and out bullying, and even make criminal. It's basically online criminal intimidation, as we saw from uh, uh, Nicole's case, as we saw from Nada's case, as we saw from Sopheap's case. It is online criminal intimidation, which is why we are so glad that Ellie Glino is here with us from Access Now. She's the Asia Security Lead who monitors Access Now's 24/7 digital security helpline. So Ellie, because you got that amazing bicycle behind you, I'm thinking that if all else fails, Ellie is going to get on a bike and come save us. But I'm sure you won't do that. So tell us in practical terms what we need to know.
Thank you so much. Hi, everyone. Yes, so as my colleague Debbie mentioned, I'm Ellie and I work for Access Now's Digital Security Helpline. So we provide, what does the helpline do? We provide direct technical assistance to civil society organizations, activists, human rights defenders around the globe. So there are two buckets in preventing and addressing security incidents. So that includes online harassment, which is unfortunately very prevalent in the region that we all are. Uh, uh, i- I have just checked our stats earlier. Online harassment is a threat that, although it's not the highest type of threat in our region, number one is still censorship, and but it's a steady threat that we are responding in countries in Southeast Asia. Maybe it would like me, of course, maybe if we are asking why it's not the highest, no, especially now that we're talking, but maybe that is where, that the conversation that we were having about online harassment not being reported because of the stigma, because of, like all of these barriers, uh, disallowing or inhibiting women and LGBTQ people on reporting harassment. So, think for tips and guidance, well, from the helpline, of course, so oftentimes the result of online harassment is threat to your physical safety and well-being. So it's not really all about like physical being here, but as well as psychosocial. So if when you receive an online attack, and the result of it, you get threatened physically and your well-being. First on our recommendation is documenting what happened. Is very important. Like if it happens online, taking a screenshot, usernames of who, like if it is coming from the comments, usernames, if it is coming from like a website, the URLs, the web address, but also of course recognizing, no, that documenting something that is bad already is a bit daunting for an individual, no. So what we suggest is, if it becomes overwhelming, always uh, find a colleague, a friend, a family that could help you on doing this, because uh, and this is like double. I felt like it's unfortunate, no, like reporting to platforms, you have to have a proof that you are harassed. Like it's very unfortunate, like that, because if you don't have a proof, you know, if you don't have a proof, then it won't be answered. Like if it won't be answered by platforms, you have to show a proof. And again, like personally for me, and also as a security professional, it's unfortunate because much of the work is on the victim in this case. So after documentation, uh, again, like if the harassment or the attack is happening on your platforms, social media platforms, please enable security, heighten the security of your accounts. Meaning, what do we mean by securing your accounts? Of course, strong passwords, enabling two-factor authentication. Because number one, like if you are a targeted person, they will not just attack you, with comments. They will try to get to know you. Like what email address are you using on your Facebook? What on your Twitter. So they will try, like if you are targeted, most likely they will try to log in to your account. So always make sure that always ensure that the security configuration of your online accounts are up to what they call this, up to like the baseline. So right now the baseline, the default security, like if you have an online account, you need to have a strong password, like more than right now the minimum is at least 14 characters. So that's a mixture of like capital, small letter, characters, numbers. So minimum of 14 right now, because like 8, like below, it could be easily, like there's already a software to guess passwords with that length. Number two is have two-factor authentication or multi-factor authentication. What that means? Meaning, when you log into your account, you log in with your password, and then there's another type of authentication. Um, Oftentimes, that is an application-based authenticator, or code-based, what we call code-based authenticator, wherein you have an application that generates codes, no? So when you log in the password, it asks again um, another set of codes, and that's only when you log in. The safety of that is because the application is only with you. Password could be, again, like, when we trust another person, or right now, security breaches on different systems, companies happens. And when we tend to repeat our passwords, these passwords get uploaded in the internet through these for-profit hackers. So it's really important. Like right now, that's the two. Never repeat your password. Have long password, and then enable multi-factor authentication. Number three is have an awareness of your information available online. Because often, sometimes we get to forget that, oh, my name is actually on this type of website. My video is here. One of the methods, that this is pretty technical, or not so technical, what we call the technique that we are recommending to our beneficiaries is self-dox yourself. So in information security, doxing means finding information about a person online that you could use, like their name, where do they live, how do they look like, what are their favorites. Because a lot of, like with social media being, like a part of our life, like sharing all these things, and it becomes available online. So, so the technique is, oftentimes doxing is an online attack, or oftentimes get used by our adversary to us. They search for our name, search for any personal information about us, and try to use it against us, especially if we are trying to be a private person, no? However, like we use that same technique to protect ourselves. So that is what we call self-doxing. So try to search, like right now, again, like if you uh again, like it should be, please take this with precaution. Like again, like maybe have a trusted friend, because it could also be overwhelming, because a lot of us, like even me, like I don't know what's in there, what's in there online. It might be frightening to know what is in there online. But yeah, like search your name, review all your online accounts. Where did you recently school, you know, like, oh, do you still have your pictures at schools, or or your names on this past a conference you attended 10 years ago. Try to search all of those, and especially that now, right, that we have like privacy policies like GDPR, you could right away like request removal of this information if you deem that's not necessary to be there anymore, removing all of this. So those are like the three things that could hopefully, again, that could limit on the threat that you are experiencing in online.
Thank you so much, Ellie. So it's not just about gathering evidence when we're harassed, but also thinking about what proactive things we can do to actually prevent this harassment, prevent being hacked. And now we know a new term called self-doxing. So as you were saying this, Ellie, I was getting a little bit worried because I was thinking, I know so much information about people on LinkedIn. Actually, LinkedIn is a wealth of information, because a lot of stuff that you would not want to put on, say, Facebook, you tend to share in LinkedIn, because you're thinking this is going to improve my professional opportunities. So now we have to, Nicole saying, yes, I deactivated my LinkedIn. There's too much information on LinkedIn for no reason. See, so she learned it very quickly. We're all just, oldies just starting to realize this. We thank you everyone for your contributions, but as Ellie and Debbie and Blandina were speaking, other friends in the room like Sopheap and others were also starting to think also and reflect on what they've shared and what you've shared with each other. So I just wanted to just do a little round robin for about 3 minutes for everybody to reflect on what they've learned, or if they wanted to add something to their to what they've shared with us today. So I'm just going to go back in the original order. So it's Sophia, Nada, Tintinio, Nicole, Debbie, Blandina, and back to Ellie. So over to you, Sophia.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie, and thank you to our panelists and commentator who share very good tips. And I hope our audience who follow us can also benefit from the dialogue. Given my personal experience so far, I also want to share, how I personally cope with this situation. And I hope this will also help to strengthen others as well. So personally, I would take with 3 approach or 3 levels. One is to manage within our personal level. I think it's very important from the beginning when we exposed to that kind of online harassment or whatever form, counseling ourselves, so at a personal level, I think it's important that we should not buy in those kind of harassment in ourselves. I think that's important. Of course, those troll, those head speak blind blah is terrible. But should we buy in it in ourselves? I think it would not benefit us at a personal level. But I think treat it as their problem. It's not our problem. What they comment, how they behave, it tells a lot about their behavior. It's not it's not in a way that we take it so personal in a way that it can destroy us personally. What I mean here is like it is a problem, but don't take it as don't make it more problem at ourselves, because the problem is enough. So if we make it more problematic, we are double in terms of problems. So I just want to share here at a personal level at how we can manage it, so we don't come to the state of, you know, like to burn out or to depression because of all the experience or all the harassment that we receive. I know it's very hard when we personally would be the one who targeted. So that's why I think at a personal level, try to manage or find way to help us at a mental health level. It's really good, you know, like practicing a regular meditation could also help, because it helps to transform our thinking, and we would not react strongly to such a harassment. But it does not mean to downside those harassment and don't take it seriously. I don't mean that, but what I mean is at a personal level, we have to ensure that we can still in a very good mental health state. But then move to the other level is at the organizational level. At the organizational level, I think when we expose to such an kind of harassment, sometimes we have to also, you know, like ensure to raise this issue to discuss with our team at the organization, because sometimes you know, the such attitude can also reflect a public perception that may also take place or have been endorsed by our team member. You know, like we have to take it seriously. Dialogue with our team, you know, open the discussion, but try to explain them and empower them that this is not okay, you know, so that they can also learn. So they at the organizational level, we start to transform and empower our team member to also denounce such an harassment, for them to understand that, you know, what happened when someone would be the target of such an harassment and how they should behave, more generally too. So sometimes it is within ourselves that we have to transform or change the perception. The third level is the action. You know, how we act against those harassment. From my experience, first I will speak up. You know, I would not shy away from denouncing those harassment. So speak up publicly or at any avenue that we can, such this dialogue, you know, demonstrate the issue, how such harassment can take place and how effective could it be, you know. So speak up. And second is report to relevant actor, or we call ally, that we believe that they would take our case seriously. So when I would expose to such a experience, I would screenshot, like our previous speaker mentioned, document it, screenshot, and then circulate to interested group, like the embassy, like INGO, our donor, as well as the UN agency, for them to be aware what's happening. And they may offer a solution in which we may not think of, or in which we don't even ask, you know. So probably certain offer or solution could be useful. For example, you know, when I start communicating with OHCHO, I show them the case, I screenshot those cases, and then the conversation start to roll on that, you know, they want to document the case, get more in depth on the harassment that I experienced and the network that have experienced together. So, you know, the conversation start to roll on, and then they brought the case to the special rapporteur on the violence against women and relevant UN working group. And then those UN working special rapporteur brought the case and communicate to the government. So you see, these are certain action we can do. Speak up, you know, report the case to relevant actor, and then, you know, start to roll out communication and don't shy away to speak up. And so this is just how I have handled with the situation from personal level. I don't take it personally. I take it as the problem by those who offend us. I don't take it as my own problem, you know. So that's why I have to address the problem itself. I would like to end my note here that, you know, of course, we could see the challenges that many human rights defenders have faced. I mean, when we're talking about human rights defenders, in general, regardless women, men, or LGBTIQ, but the difference between the women human rights defender and perhaps including LGBTIQ defender are the fact that we experience the same threat on the street or online, but the different degree is that for women or LGBTIQ, the subject of our body, our beauty, or our gender and orientation will be the additional attack that we all experience. And this is something that it's not to normalize the you know, the concept of being a women human rights defender, but this is something that for civil society advocate as well as the relevant group have to recognize the problem and how we should come up with a concrete action to address it, supporting to those who experience it, ending the victim blaming culture, for example, and as well as other necessary action to you know, to transform the situation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophia. So this is Sophiap's recipe for how to tell those assholes, hey, you messed with the wrong feminist, and I am bringing every system down on your head as much as possible. So I think this is something that we, you know, it requires energy, but sometimes some people do cross the limits. And crossing the limits, Nada, I mean, you, the LGBT community, and as a prominent trans woman activist, you are so visible, and it just takes immense courage to even exercise your legal rights as a lawyer. So I just wanted to know, is solidarity important to nurture you as you grapple with what's going on, and how can all of us be better allies in your cause?
Oh my God, thank you. It's just very, very touching questions. And yes, solidarity goes beyond just about who I am in terms of like receiving the death threat. And I think because being women rights defenders and being transgenders, women, you know, like we're struggling in terms of like calling for solidarity and calling for support, you know, like sharing the same core value as human rights defenders is one of the key elements. But in the same time, people keen to believe that, oh, you are strong enough, you can stand alone to fight. But to be honest, when you receive the death threat directly to yourself, to your skin, to your identity, it's something that you cannot take away. It's not somebody threat you because you eat something wrong or because you wear something wrong. It's under your skin. It's in your DNA. So you carry it with you. You can't sleep with peace every night. You wake up with the feeling that what's going on, what's going to happen next. So having such great alliance, whether under the umbrella of women rights defenders or human rights lawyers, you know, like we need to reach out more to have people back up us in order to fight, because this fight is not for transgender women to be like to be well received as like cis women. I like the fact that we are also sharing the same thing. They attack us because they think that we are lower than them. They think we are sex object for them to do whatever they want. Like they want to kick our ass and they can do it anytime. So having great solidarity amongst women rights defenders are also one of the key, but from my point of view, I like to leave the two things that I think is really important as the key message, the key takeaway message. I think talking among us is something meaningful, but if we want to make greater impact, I think it's time for us to implement this digital literacy and security. I think it should go beyond just raising awareness among us, but it needs such serious practice, especially with judicial system. With my personal experience in terms of reporting the crime, I remember that clearly that the inquiry officials seem not to understand that is it possible for someone to hate others, especially with their gender identity, enough to act against like to take our life away, So I think in terms of make the case of efficient enough, I think it's time for us to mobilize and be more inclusive with those who have the judicial roles and policies and even their enforcement powers in their hand. We need to really work hard with them to push agenda just beyond raising awareness, but into practice in reality. So the second point I like to also address is the digital footprint does not leave its appearance in the digital world, but scarring in our mind and heart. So in order to be less lens and become a survivor, we need to also implement it in the healthcare provider setting, so they can build professional capacity to ensure the existing mental health services are applicable in relation to the context of digital security and literacy toward women rights defenders. So I think maybe it's time for us to kick off and build a concrete plan or programs, in order to make sure that we, women rights defender, will be not just survivor, but we still have to carry our responsibilities towards society, right? So this is what I would like to leave with this webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nada. And thanks for reminding us that beyond this webinar, we do need to actually think in practical terms on how to implement what we're talking about. Tintinio is an incredibly dangerous person because she's a feminist. She's got principles and she's got a strong opinion. And one of the things that Tintinio spoke about earlier was speaking truth to power, calling out people who are on the same side as you, who are supposed to be the good guys. In this case, human rights activists against the military coup in Burma actually made threats against the wives and female family members of military officers. Because these military men had shot and killed people in the street. What Tintinio was saying was, you shouldn't be doing that because that's misogyny. That's replicating what the military has done in terms of using women's bodies and women's safety to demoralize ethnic communities. Now, Tintinio, how do we address this? How do we get the guts to do this? Because these are actually very often our own colleagues, people that we work with, who are doing this harassment and bullying. How do we call them out? And what are the ways, what can we learn from your experience?
Yes, thank you. But for me, it's like to actually trying to make this kind of comments removed from Facebook. is like one thing is to ignore, not to share, not to like. I mean, not to pay any kind of emotion. So that is one thing that we can do. And then the second thing is like maybe if it is getting too much, well, we can report. We can do the report. I think like we also have to raise awareness to all the women who are using online or digital platform, know that they have the right to report if anything that is harassing or abusing them, or anything that is not socially appropriate, they can report. So that's what we can do. And then, of course, like this, all action will come after they themselves accept what I really meant, that we shouldn't use the woman bodies or the woman as a scapegoat, or woman as like a tool to demoralize the other groups. So the women themselves and also the men champion, they need to understand first, because this time I can see that like we are too focused on the main enemy. So we have to, some people like suggest that we have to forget about women rights issues, gender equality issues, or this kind of things, which is not that important. Some people think like that and suggest like that, because we are going to lose our common enemy. So I don't think that way, because like our fight never come one after another. It's all come at once, and then we have to fight at once. You know, even when we are talking about like why the women do not have the role to talk or to have opinions for the public decision making, because every like a forum, every web binder, you can see that all are men, is a manual. So during the coup time, when one friend pointed out about this manual, and then another, they said that, oh, this is not the time to talk about these things. So I said that no, we have to talk about this, because like our fight is for all and at once. So like this is the themes that we have to do. And also I think like in relation to these comments, as I also said earlier, we really need to continue to talk about the media information literacy or digital literacy. Because like women are most vulnerable, of course, we have to prioritize them. But I think like as even the practitioners of the media person themselves, or the people who are like, controlling any social media platform, also need to understand the gender sensitivity within this in this platform, so that they have to understand, they have to control, so that they can secure some kind of like a security measurement for the women and other vulnerable groups. So that's also one thing that we have to continue to prioritize. Even if we are under the military coup, we have to continue to educate. Because like a social media platform will be the platform where we can do good things, and that we're supposed to do good things, not bad things. So we have to clearly, let the people know that this is the platform that we have to use for the good sake of everyone benefits, and then also like our fight for democracy, our fight against the military coup. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tintinio. So regardless of the struggle, we have to ensure that our fellow human rights activists know how to walk and chew gum at the same time, that they're not just fighting on one front. This is an intersectional struggle. Nicole, you tried to be an ally by putting out the infographics to be an ally to your friends in the transgender community, and in the end also ended up being targeted by a very powerful and influential body. The JAKIM in Malaysia actually got more funding from the Malaysian government than even the National Human Rights Commission. So that's how powerful they are. So Nicole, has it been difficult for you to actually seek help from other allies in this struggle, in your struggle to deal with what's going on? Has it been difficult to reach out to others? What do you wish you knew then, and what would you like more of now? Is that a complicated question? I'm sure you got it. You got what I meant, right?
I got what you meant. It's a complicated question, but yes, it's a complicated question. Okay, I think, when it was happening, I did receive a lot of support from the LGBTQ community, but it's because the way of LGBT organizing in Malaysia is so, like, we all know we're being surveilled. We all know we're being surveilled. I know I'm being surveilled, and the way you organize in those spaces is like, okay, always on the defense. We need to have 10,000, like, we need to do a risk assessment. We need to do lots of like, prevention things, compared to other spaces that I'm in. Like, let's say we're in education, no one in the education CSOs, like, no one thinks about all these things. It's only if you're working with like LGBT women, then only like you will know or know about this or know what to do or have some kind of training or actual tips to do this. But like, yeah, so LGBT, yes. The rest, I remember when we put out a statement to counter all these police reports. I can't remember who else supported me. I think like the indigenous groups were like, yes, we feel your pain. But I can't remember, but the rest. But there definitely is a divide, like I said, between the not so controversial topics versus the controversial topics. And I think who was saying, Sophia and Tintin were saying about I think it's Nada who was saying about needing the solidarity between like the other CSOs to come together to like denounce this and speak up about this. Because when this was happening, like the strategy to counter this was ignore the trolls, don't respond. But I felt I wanted to respond. I wanted people to come to defend me, like I want to fight back, but then apparently that's it will cause more grief. So I think that answers your first question about but basically no one responded. Also, no one from the community responded because they were scared of getting attacked as well. Like, especially if you're trans, like they're not gonna put themselves on to defend me. Like they're gonna get attacked themselves or like get sent to like some camp. So that's your first question. The second question is, what do I want? I think a lot of what everyone has shared before me, I'm like, yes, I would love all that. Those are very practical, realistic solutions. But for myself, I want all that. But I will be straight up honest here that, I still, since starting to organize in the LGBT spaces, like I forever on the edge. I am forever anxious and scared whenever I organize anything, and I take that with me to like my climate justice spaces, and it's something that I cannot like shake off, like because I'm so worried, like, oh, what if something that happened to me happened to someone else? So I just want to be honest. I want to be as hopeful as everyone else who spoke before me and positive. I know that it it's bigger than the things that are happening to you, but I guess my hopes are everything that you said, but I don't know. I think it's okay to say I'm still struggling. That's all I want to end with. Yeah.
It's going to be an ongoing struggle, Nicole. Everybody's struggling. We just found ways of coping. But just want to let you know that sometimes the fear you have for others, because you're an activist, you feel more fearful to put others in danger. You become more protective of others than of yourself. And, the thing is that we just have to find ways of changing the way we think and getting into the habit of being able to cope and being able to push through. We're all here for you. We're all active on social media. If you need someone to reach through the Facebook and smack somebody, just let us know, okay? But you're not alone on this, Nicole. So don't. The worst thing that you can feel is feel alone, and the worst thing you can feel is to feel scared, not just for yourself but for others. So, we're all activists. We got to take care of ourselves and of each other. And it's not, you don't have extra responsibility to take care, to protect others. Other people also have responsibility to protect themselves. Anyway, I'm thinking, I'm feeling, I'm provoked, I'm stimulated. We have one question in the Facebook Live, which was from Cherevata. How can we sue the perpetrators in the country if he's in the court, if he's the one who runs the whole court? Yeah, I know exactly who you mean. And we are actually facing ongoing struggles that our civic space, our democratic spaces are becoming increasingly oppressed, not just in Cambodia, but in Burma, Myanmar, in Thailand, elsewhere in Malaysia. So we really want the world to, all stakeholders in the world, to take this more seriously, that online criminal intimidation is still a crime and should be treated as such, especially when this is actually a very serious and prevalent form of violence against women. I wanted to spend the last 13 minutes just sharing that with Devi, Blandina, and Ellie. Did you have anything to add in response to these very powerful sharing? Devi?
Oh, yeah, no, it was very powerful. And I think I've not experienced nearly as much as everyone else in this panel, so I've kind of learned a lot from it. I think one thing that has occurred to me over time is just like online sphere actually allows for cowardice, because it's a new kind of form of communication where you can say whatever you want, do whatever you want, and you think you can get away with it. And so actually a lot more dirt is coming out in society rather than when you didn't have the online sphere. So I think in a way, probably to use like Sophia's analogy of meditation, because they say when you meditate, like the dirt comes out first and then the fresh water comes. And I don't think we're at that point of the fresh water. So I would just say, like, just learn to ride it, ride the dirt as a wave. But yeah, I do hope in the future, because now it's been years, but it's still a frontier thing where people are just using a technology to do whatever they want because they think they can get away with it. But I think in the future, that may not happen. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you, Devi. Blandina?
Yeah, it's interesting questions, because I also want to highlight that online gender-based violence is violence, because so many, I think society in common said it's only a joke, that this is not a joke, and it's not only women being too sensitive for all the comments online, because it is the violence, it is in fact us, because so many Indonesian women human rights defender who facing online gender-based violence, they said they experience like do self-censorship to express their opinion online, because they're afraid to get this online violence. And the interesting case in Indonesia, we not acknowledge online gender-based violence as a violence. Like, we don't have any regulation that mention this gender-based violence as a crime. So it's also the challenge, and I hope that I can hear other experience from others country as well. And so that's why our strategy right now is the solidarity that Nada mentioned, how to make survivors it's not feels alone, and they're not it's not their fault, and this is the systemic problem, how the patriarchies extend to technology. And also yeah, we do like a task force for women who experience online gender-based violence. And we try to mainstreaming like digital security tips as well for the woman human rights defender. And one of the simple tips is usually we will uh, tell them to try. It's a technical tips that they maybe can separate their social media accounts for personal things like friends and family, and they have another accounts to like do the works and human rights, promoting human rights issues, because it's actually matters, especially when Ali said that there's so many doxing cases for towards women human rights defenders. So I think, yeah, that's the things that I can share. And I hope that Indonesia currently do the advocacy to about the sexual harassment bill, and I hope it's soon. We have it soon.
Thank you, Blandina. Ellie, over to you. More practical tips.
Oh my. Okay. Practical tips. Well,
No. Impractical tips also can. Just go ahead. Go for it.
yeah, sure. I mean, you know, coming from someone, you know, there's a lot of studies about what is the cost of cybersecurity issues, you know, security breaches. Right now, all over the world, it's billions and dollars of actual money. You know, a company getting hacked, a smaller, but the cost of online harassment is, you know, expands more than money. And for someone who works on the helpline that deals from the helpline, since we are all have tech background, because we provide direct technical assistance, you know, like we approach things in technological solutions, but because our work is human centric, you know, there's the human side of it, and this is very close to me because for every day my role is to provide technical solutions. And you know, online harassment it happens online in a technology sphere. And as much as, you know, like I provide the best advice, I provide the best response, we work together with you know, the beneficiaries, the cost, the impact, you know, I myself, me, like I cannot solve it. We couldn't solve, you know, the impact of online harassment, because even if we get to take down the harassing content, even if we get to block the trolls, you know, the impact, you know, the emotional toll that the victims have accumulated from that, if, if not today, like it goes on, it continues. And that's something that, you know, like always, like how could we solve that, like how could we solve that? So I really believe that's really reform, like uh, political reform, technological reform, you know, platforms like Facebook and Twitter, acknowledging that this is not just like, you don't just push buttons or put, you know, like automate things, because you are dealing with humans who are who uh, 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 carry the impact of these attacks with them, even extending to their families. You know, like it's just like, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be like morbid or dire, you know. Like I want to end. I want to end this conversation, you know. But it's just, it's a, what they call this. They said like it's death on million needles, you know. Like the online harassment. That's it. Like it's not just, every. Yeah. So again, like solidarity. I think that's one. I think in our region, that's our key strength. We are really the civil society, the energy, the solidarity is really strong. Yeah, amidst our you know, the adversary. But of course, from the helpline, from working on international NGO, yes, responding, having actual actions. This is something that we have to really push, and let what they call this uplifting. You know, local responders, making sure, because that's something that we are. trying to grow, like from the helpline, we would like to grow local responders, because in terms of online harassment, because there's the trust, right? Trust is really important. Timing is really important, because it could be the violence, the threat of violence online could easily be transferred physically, if we are not careful, or if we are not proactive on these things. So always, like, the closest the people who help, the better. So we try to grow these resources, local responders that could provide assistance to online harassment attacks. And that's something that we are doing in the helpline, as part of like CVCERT. So that's a consortium or umbrella group of rapid responders, hosting providers. One of our objectives is grow the responders in each region, in each countries, so that the responses on this type of attacks are fast. Yeah. So that's for me.
Thank you, Ellie. So there you have it. We've had 2 hours of really intense, candid, heart sharing, heartbreaking, but also really inspiring. And I hope you come out of this feeling energized and your spirits lifted a little bit. We talked about all these issues. We have to recognize that the trauma from online criminal intimidation, cyberbullying, and harassment, particularly against women human rights defenders, and including trans women, is a very serious trauma. It requires, as Nada pointed out, health professionals to acknowledge that and treat it as such. It requires massive amounts of solidarity and energy to share with each other, to support each other. It requires very serious policy and legislative reforms, but also it requires all of us to hold tech companies accountable, especially in social media companies. They have a responsibility to ensure that their platforms, their products are not harmful to their customers and not being used as a weapon against women human rights defenders. That's it. I wish we had 2 more hours to discuss. This was really amazing conversation and dialogue. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you everyone for listening in now and in the future. This has been the ASEAN Regional Coalition to Stop Digital Dictatorship session on women human rights defenders in the digital space, realities and social solutions to speak truth to power freely. And I want to thank our speakers, Sopheap, Chak from the Cambodia Center for Human Rights, Nada Chaiyajit from the Manushya Foundation, Tintin Neo, who had to leave early, who's managing director of Burma News International, but also an overall kick-ass feminist for the Burma Human Rights Movement. Nicole Fong from Klima Action Malaysia for being an ally above and beyond. And Devi Sivaprakasam and Ellie Gleno from Access Now. Now you know, Access Now has a 24/7 digital security helpline. And of course, Blandina Lintang Setyanti from ALTSEAN Indonesia. And thank you, Manushya Foundation, for doing all the tech support and hosting and putting this all together. Take care, everybody, and big virtual hug to all of you. Bye-bye. See you on another webinar. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you all. Stay safe.
Yeah.
Woo.